All right. So actually, uh, all right. So guys, we're having a few technical difficulties. Good morning, Trevin. Um, so what we're going to do today, right now, we're actually officially starting things right now. We've had some technical difficulties, but we were lucky enough. We got Lexie with us. So we're going to go through the beginning of class real quick, and then we're going to get her on, and she's going to talk today about liver health, a little bit about traditional Chinese medicine, the theories behind it, and how this time of year it's really great to focus on your liver and how you can do that and keep your liver healthier. So what we're going to do, oops, we're going to get to the right window. I've got right now to do this, I've got 4 different windows popped up, and it's really interesting. So really quick, just like we always do, let's take just a moment. Hopefully you've been doing your 5-minute exercise, your writing exercise. Today we're not really going to do all that because we want to get into the interview with Lexie, but as always, I want you going back and taking 5 minutes. Do your free writing. Remember, no self-editing, no self-judging. For 5 minutes, just write out and write out and write out what you're trying, or what's going on in your mind. And we're not quite, I think this is class 9 of the COVID series, so we're not quite up to the end of the second week. So right now you're still just looking at what you've been writing, recognize thoughts, recognize emotions, recognize triggers, make sure that that you're just getting what's in your head out onto the paper. All right. So with that said, let's move around and get started. All right, everyone. I want to introduce you to Lexie Bennetts. She's an acupuncturist since '99, I believe.
Yes.
Good morning, Lexie. How are you doing?
Good morning. Good to be here.
I'm sorry for all the technical difficulties.
No worry. It happens. Mine last week had the same thing.
All right. So you're going to hear a little bit of an echo in the background. That's kind of just me monitoring what she's saying, so I don't get a whole lot of background echo, and so that we can actually have a conversation here. So Lexie, tell you what, before we get too much further in life, can you give me a little bit of history about you, your practice, and I kind of want to give you a plug here.
Oh, well, thank you. I've been practicing Chinese medicine since 1999, and I went to school at Colorado School of Traditional Chinese Medicine in Denver. And before that, I went to Boulder CU for 4 years and for biology. And I think getting into Chinese medicine has been one of the best things I've done, not just professionally as a career, but also for my family. I have 4 boys, and they're 20, 19, 16, and 14. And I've been able to luckily keep them really healthy. They've never been on antibiotics, and they have generally done very well. And so between acupuncture, herbs, good diet, the energy of food, learning all of this stuff has helped with my whole family. And so that's been a blessing. And right now, just practicing a lot. We stay pretty busy at the office, and I love doing it. I think it's been just a great fit for what I like to do.
All right. Well, with COVID going on and our businesses shut down, this whole series right now is about what people are going through with the coronavirus and with quarantine. Here in Denver, we saw yesterday the governor got up, said, and kind of gave an overview of what businesses and people can expect moving forward in the next week. I should say May 4th and moving on. Really quick, how has all of this affected your business?
It's made a big impact. Just having, we're doing some Zoom calls and some telehealth calls with herb consults and things like that. But, not being able to see people to do actual treatments on them has been really a challenge, trying to help people with their health without doing the actual treatment and just doing herbs, or trying to help them with their diet, or doing their own acupressure can be helpful, but maybe not quite as the same or as strong as having regular acupuncture.
Okay.
And
Well,
so it's been a challenge, and just trying to get through this. Hopefully we'll get some different help from the banks and things, just with having to shut down for 6 to 8 weeks. Just um, I'm hoping that we'll get some sort of support.
how's it looking for you moving forward with the restrictions coming off, with businesses opening back up again? What's it going to look like for you and your business?
We can start next week, Monday the 27th, at 50% capacity. And so we're supposed to have less staff and less patients. And basically, we have a good plan. We have 8 treatment rooms, so we can just put people directly into a room. We can sanitize the rooms and make sure we're all wearing masks. So I think people should feel safe as far as coming in to get treatments. But it's just not quite the same. We can't have people sitting out in the waiting room or anything like that, and trying to keep people distanced. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but just talking to patients about that, and also trying to help them figure that out when they're coming and going.
Yeah, that's understandable. All right, well then let's get into a little bit about traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, some of the theories behind it. Not too in depth, obviously, but how does traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM, kind of look at the body with the different elements and the different pathways? Just a quick, brief overview.
So in general, there's an energy which is called qi, and it's your life force that helps keep every cell getting nourished and what it needs, as far as moving the blood and everything to get to the cell. And so we think when we're healthy, everything is flowing like rivers. Everything's moving and flowing and keeping well nourished. When you get things stuck like a dam, you get deficiencies and excesses, and then you get things not getting the nourishment they need. And that's when things start to grow and cause pain, and different ailments can start up. And if we can get that energy to move again, a lot of times those ailments will just go away. Um, and then there's different parts of the Chinese medicine, like the 5 elements, and thinking about heat, cold, dry, damp, wind. And that's like nature, everything's compared with nature. If in the body we have imbalances with those things, like too much damp or too much heat, it'll manifest in different ways with certain symptoms. And so it's all about balance. So when you see too much heat, you dry it out. When you see too much cold, you warm it up. Just all about balance, dryness, all of this stuff. You try to keep things balanced that way. And there's things we can do with herbs. We can direct the energy with doing the acupuncture to try to help certain organs work better, to help with those different imbalances, and doing the treatments and acupressure and different ways of stimulating points. And then also a big factor is the diet. And I talk to people a lot about their diet, because I think that is something we all have control over. And if we're educated enough, we should know, if I have too much of this, I need to eat more of this to help balance it out. And if I'm eating too much of this, then I might be causing this. And so if people get more aware with their diet, they can often correct symptoms that are beginning before they turn into a big problem. And even big problems, if they start to change their diet, they can help correct those.
Okay. And so how does acupuncture help with this? I mean, with the needles and everything.
Well, stimulating certain points on different channels can help the body. I think of it almost like telling the body, direct the energy here. You're stuck there. You need to move energy there, or you need to bring energy here. And so it's kind of like programming the body to say these points are going to help move certain things. Like if you have too much heat, we have points that clear heat. If we have too much um, dryness, we have points that help nourish, get your body to bring fluids to help with the yin. And there's only so much we can do with the acupuncture. We can support it, but if a person doesn't do enough with their diet or have the right nutrients to come help, then it may not be as effective. And that's where we have to work together with the patient, almost like a partnering of we're trying to direct energy and get it to do something. And you also need to do your part with your diet and maybe taking the herbs or, different parts of your lifestyle. If you're overdoing it, you need to back off or you need to move more. It's just all about helping them figure out with their lifestyle and with their diet what can help balance their system. And it's different for everyone. That's when someone comes in with an ailment like arthritis or even MS or some Western diagnosis. Everyone is different. We may see more signs of heat in one person and more signs of dampness in another person, one signs of yin deficiency or what we call dryness in another person. And so it's all individual. It doesn't really, some people ask me, well, what are you going to do for my arthritis? Well, it's different for everyone. It depends how it's manifesting in your body. And then from there, we can try to balance it.
Nice. So a couple of classes ago, we were talking about fears and phobias, and one of the ones that popped up after that class was a fear of needles. And I know I've tried to explain to people, about acupuncture needles and why they're really not all that scary. Really quick, how would you describe an acupuncture needle?
They're tiny, almost hair-like. They're maybe stiff hairs. And there are different sizes depending on where we're putting them. The lengths and the widths of them can be slightly different. And just depending what we're trying to do. If we're trying to really disperse energy that's stuck in a knot or something, we may use a little bigger needle and a little more aggressive needling. Where if they're more deficient, we may be a little more gentle, more what they call more superficial needling and just very subtle. So there's just different things we can do with the needles. But a lot of people, I would say 95% are surprised that they don't hurt as much as getting a shot or like a hypodermic needle that's, these big hollow needles that are injecting things. They're not nearly as painful and some people feel nothing, hardly at all. Some points you may feel more than others. And sometimes it's like a dam has built up in a certain channel or a certain area. And as soon as you do the point, it releases that. So they may get a stronger feeling, but it's actually a good sign that things are starting to move. And a lot of times people say, well, something's moving. I can feel like little aches or little weird things. And those are good signs that things are starting to shift the energy in the body that's been not where it should be, stuck or deficient.
Nice. So that you'd say they're nowhere near the size of a hypodermic needle. They're just little teeny tiny.
Yes, just like a stiff hair kind of. They're
So really
very
nothing to get worried
flexible
about.
and
All right.
yeah.
So let's move forward. Today we're talking to you about liver health, and you just did an informational meeting about this a few days ago. Why is liver health so important? I mean, why is it a big thing this time of year?
So with Chinese medicine, every organ is connected to a season, and that season means it's the time of year when that organ is more prone to have problems, or when you can make a bigger impact by helping that organ function better. And so springtime, which is just starting, is liver time. And a lot of people get symptoms that are pretty pronounced or specific to springtime, like allergies, or a lot of with wind changes, people can get like neck pain or headaches more in the spring or different things like that. And so it just helping your liver function better with your diet, with certain stretches, with different breathing techniques, just to get your rib cage and things to move better to help that liver get the energy it needs. And then doing some acupuncture or acupressure on yourself to open the channel and get that liver channel to move better are really important to help get through some of those. I've had people that I've worked on and just to work on their liver because they're having tendinitis, and the liver is in charge of the sinews or the tendons, the ligaments, the different tissues like the nails. And just by working on a person's tendons, he said, my allergies have never been this good. And so I knew that working on his liver was helping his other symptoms that were out of balance as well
Nice.
from the liver.
Okay. Other than some of those aches and pains, I know from my own very brief studies of traditional Chinese theory and five element theory, what is it? What are some of the other physical signs you might see from somebody with liver problems, other than the acute signs of the neck pain? What else might you see in the body?
A lot of times people get, as far as emotional, they get depressed or angry, irritable. Those are usually the emotions that go with the liver. And there's things we can do, like getting the liver moving can help people feel so much lighter and easier with their emotional imbalances. But tendons, like I say, tendons, fascia, that tissue, that connective tissue is really connected to the liver, and trying to help the liver function better. It can help the joints work better. Um, there's ringing in the ears. If it's a high pitched ringing, that's usually related to liver imbalances. It can sometimes be harder to correct if someone's had damage from loud noise, but it isn't impossible if people have ringing that's maybe related to their liver energy that's out of balance going up to their head. So there are ways we can impact that, just on different, it depends on the diagnosis or the person. The other is eyes, mostly any eye problems like burning, itching, watery, red, puffy. People, when they come in with eye problems, I almost always work on the liver, just because that's the organ that the liver energy opens to. A lot of reproductive problems, like women with PMS or cramps, clotty periods, all these irregular periods, a lot of times that is related to their liver being stagnant or out of balance. And I'm trying to think of any other rib cage pain, usually any kind of pain that's around the middle of the abdomen and the ribs, mid back. Those are more liver related. We tend to get the liver moving if we see any of that pain in that area. Those are some of the main things that I can think of off the top of my head. There are more.
Okay, so let's get into what you were talking about the other day on your informative meeting about foods for the liver and eating healthy for the liver. Go ahead and just go through what you were going through with that meeting.
Well, we're finding that with more science, they're saying that if we have enough fiber in our diet, it helps. The fiber binds to certain fats and toxins and hormones. It can help get excess out of our system. And so eating a good high fiber diet is important to help your body clear and help your liver clear the toxins out. And I'll go through a list of fiber foods that I'm finding to be really easy to make, cheap, easy to make in a crock pot or an instant pot, and have several meals, and great fiber, great nutrients, a lot of good nutrition. So those are some. And then also, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought as far as the liver. But other diet foods, greens, usually things in the spring when things are starting to get green, like dandelions and things like that. Dandelion greens are one of the best. You want to make sure they're not sprayed with any pesticides, and you can buy them at a lot of different health food stores, and trying to find ways to make them more tasty. I like to make a lot of different soups and stews and stir fries, and I can mix up my beet greens and my dandelion greens and just put them in there with all my other usual carrots and celery. And I use a lot of oxtail and other meats and things. And I think that is a good way to get a lot of that nutrition in to help the liver. A lot of times I'll take a handful of greens and saute it and mix my eggs in it and maybe a little salsa. And so usually greens and some sour. You can overdo it with too much sour to overdo the liver or kind of overstimulate the liver. But lime and vinegar and pickles and things like that can help the liver get a little movement. And if you're craving those things, that's usually a sign that your liver's calling for help. When certain organs are weak, like a lot of people with sugar or with spicy foods or salty foods, certain organs are asking for help. They need support. And usually with sour, it's the liver saying, I need movement. I need support.
Oh, we lost audio on you.
Oh, sorry. I'm not sure where we lost it.
There we go. Oh, got you back again.
Okay.
There you
Well, did I need to start over somewhere?
go. No, probably just the last 10 seconds.
Just moving the energy with some sour foods. The sour foods support the liver, and you can overdo it with too much. So you want to be careful not to do that. But a little bit of lime water, a little vinegar, pickles, those kinds of sour foods, lemon water, they're really good to help the liver get more movement. But they also can be, if you do too much, you can overdo it and kind of bog down your system. Just like with any craving, when you're craving certain foods, your organs are calling for help, and you can overdo it by going way too much, but a little bit of it can help stimulate that organ to get what it needs to function better.
Okay. So to go back a little bit, about the pesticides or watching for pesticides, does it mean I could kind of go make my neighbor happy by picking out all the dandelions out of his yard and
Yes.
and cooking them up?
Well, and so a lot of these chemicals like pesticides and that, we want to be careful, but eating the more fiber diet, like some of my favorites I've been doing are lentils. And this company is out of Oregon. She's acupuncturist in Oregon. It's called the Breakfast Cure. And you buy these smaller crock pots that are 1.5 quart. I love the mushroom medley with, it's got red mushroom and some beans, red beans and things. One of my new favorites that she just came out with is Karen's khichdi. Khichdi is an Ayurvedic food. It's Indian, which goes along with a lot of Chinese medicine. They eat to balance organs and balance parts of the body. But khichdi is often eaten weekly to help cleanse the body. It has some aged rice and yellow lentils, good fiber. She mixes a few other really good spices in it. I bought some at the Indian market, but it was not nearly as flavorful as hers. You can find it cheap, like just a couple dollars for big bags of things, and then just make it. And then if you are good with spices and different ways of making it taste good, you can do it so affordably, and a lot of great fiber that way. These are some of my other favorites, the green sprouted lentils. And you can find these at a lot of the health food markets. Even King Soopers is carrying a lot of this natural stuff. Mung beans are one of the good ones that clear out too much damp in the body. These and they find like it, I love Vitamin Cottage or Natural Grocers because they have a lot of the stuff that the Asian market has, but they have it in organic. And so you're avoiding a lot of the chemicals and pesticides you're trying to get out with the fiber anyway. And then like whole wild rice, you can mix the beans and the rice together in different ways. I love the wild rice and just different ways of getting good fiber and more flavors. And those are some of my favorites. I love the sprouted bread and a lot of the grains and beans. If you soak them, a little bit of vinegar in the water or just soak them overnight and just plain water, they can help release enzymes and things that even soaking nuts, beans, like I said, some of that soaking it for even just an hour can help release enzymes so your body is able to digest it and absorb it easier. But so like sprouted whole grain bread, this is one of my favorites. It has a couple grams of fiber per slice. They're not very big. I love this with my eggs in the morning. And just another source of getting fiber. It's not always easy to find fiber. And so if you find the foods, trying to incorporate them daily, most Americans only get like 10 to 15 grams of fiber, and we're recommended to get 30 to 35 grams a day, which can be challenging. If you're eating 3 meals a day, you have to have more than 10 grams of fiber. And it's not that easy to get in unless you're consciously thinking about it. Like walnuts, a lot of different nuts. And I love that Vitamin Cottage has them in their refrigerator so they don't go rancid as easily, keeping them in the fridge. That's what I do with my flax and my chia seeds and other seeds and nuts, keeping them in the fridge so that they will just stay longer and better quality. Some of the other grains like amaranth and millet, and these have good fiber, and they're kind of a bitter flavor. So I think finding ways to mix them with cinnamon or different, honey. I use almond milk. If you can find ways to flavor things, sometimes it makes it easier to get it in consistently without feeling like you're having to make yourself eat stuff that tastes terrible. Like some of it is pretty not that great flavor until you can find ways to season things better. Another one that's one of my favorites is nuts and dates, figs. Um, this one's just, all it is dates and coconut. And so it's got some good fats in it, good fiber. They are sugar, but it's got a lot of minerals and other things. So there's this, I think of things as on a spectrum of the best foods with a lot of good nutrition, and then the worst foods that have the lowest nutrition and not a lot of energy, that, you know, like artificial made sweeteners and all that kind of stuff. And if you eat things like dates, they have minerals and fiber and nutrition that helps balance some of the sugars that you're getting naturally. Where if you're eating like zero carb or zero calorie because it's artificial sweetener, you're really getting nothing out of it. And some of their finding can overstimulate the digestive system, what we call stimulating your spleen, to make you crave more and make you actually want more sugar and just more toxins for your liver to deal with. I would try to stay away from the stuff that are in boxes and bags, things like that, that are just processed and too many artificial chemicals that are not found in nature. It's more important to go back to whole foods in nature. And I mean, if someone chooses the banana over crackers, I really think even the sugar and things you get from a banana have other nutrients with it, fibers and different minerals and nutrients, than crackers that are just pretty much flour and water and a little bit of other flavors that are just very low nutrition. And our country is really overfed and undernourished. We just don't get enough of the right nourishment in the foods we're eating. And that's partly why I think these this immunity stuff is coming up, because our immune systems aren't as strong because of the way we eat. And I don't think they talk about that enough with all these the COVID deaths and things. How healthy are these people? What kind of diets did they have? And I think that's a huge factor. Another one of my favorites are these pasta. They are processed, but they have only like 5, 6 ingredients, and they have 3 grams of fiber per tortilla. And to me, they taste really good. You just warm them up, you're getting more fiber and a different grain, and it's just a nice way to do your burritos with not just so much white flour processed stuff. Jerusalem artichoke is really high, and they're also called sunchokes. They look about like a potato. They're high in iron and they're really high in fiber. And this is pure powdered Jerusalem artichoke. The lady that sells it is from Morocco. She's French. She lives in Monaco, but it's called the method, simply inulin. The inulin powder, it's also found in chicory root and other forms, but it's just a powdered fiber source with some other nutrients in it. And I don't like to do a lot of powders. I'd rather do it from real food. But if you're going to make shakes and different things, at least to get a little more fiber, they're trying to get each meal to have a little more fiber. You can put this in sauces, put it, over fruit or salads, just to get a little extra fiber daily. And some people have to work up to it. It's not always easy to digest, because your body, if it's low fiber, used to this low fiber diet, to deal with having the right bacteria to help digest and break down all this stuff, it can take an adjustment period where you may get gassy or bloating, and you should start out slower and then work up, and maybe doing some different probiotic foods so you can get different sources of probiotics to help absorb the nutrients better. They're finding all these different probiotics with the microbiome project, that there's probiotics from soils, there are probiotics from dairy, there's probiotics from vegetables, and different cultures have evolved with them for hundreds of years. And so their digestive system has gotten used to different bacteria and doing well with those bacteria. So trying to figure out which ones are you missing, are you needing, that could possibly help you with absorbing the food better. Chia seed, and there's different seeds that I really like, but chia seed's a good one, just good high fiber. This is another Indian food that's good high fiber, another seed that clears heat, and just from the Ayurvedic medicine, just another way of adding more nutrition. And it's kind of like a lot of people use the chia seeds or these different seeds to make like a tapioca consistency with almond milk or different things, and then adding fruit and a little honey. And it's a great way to get a dessert without a lot of the bad stuff that you buy when you buy desserts. One of my favorite easy breakfasts are whole organic oats. They used to be called oat groats. Now they're just, and you can buy them at Vitamin Cottage, like $3 for the bag, and it's probably 5 meals or 6, maybe more. But because every time I make it a cup, and there's probably about 4 cups in here, that's about 3 meals each. And I put it in the crock pot, let it cook for 7 hours or 5 hours until it's a good consistency, and then I'll take it out and put it in the fridge, and then I can just rewarm it in a pan the next day really easily. But cooking it, adding some almond milk, blueberries, or things like that, just to make it a little cinnamon, making it taste better. But it's a lot like just oatmeal, but it has a lot of the bran and the grain, the fiber still left on it. Once they've processed a lot of oatmeal, and the more the grains are processed, they take out nutrition. And so as they make them more and more like flattened and powdered, and then they lose some nutrition. So trying to get back to the whole real food is ideal, just to get more real nutrition in every little thing we eat. We can get little by little, all those little choices add up to getting extra nutrients that our body needs to make chi and make blood. And so just like broccoli and a lot of these foods that have higher dense nutrition, we should try to get little bits of them daily. A little bit of meat daily. It's important to have nutrient dense different types of meat. In Chinese medicine, we don't necessarily promote vegetarianism because most people, with being very active, exercising, they're burning up chi and blood. They need some nutrition. It depends on their activity level and what they need, but that's why everyone's individual and what works better for them, and trying to figure out how they feel if they do less meat or more veggies, more fiber. But I think just in general, going back to more whole foods that are found in nature, that's the best solution to better health.
All right. So for a family that's right now, maybe somebody's, one or more of the caregivers is out of work, they're on unemployment, or maybe just flat out laid off. How changing to this kind of healthier diet from, say, maybe the standard American diet, how much more are they, or less could a family look at for a budget? I mean, you've got a pretty good sized family that you're feeding, especially with a bunch of boys who take in food like black holes.
Yes.
What does eating like this kind of look like per meal for a budget that you can think of?
Well, it depends. If you're doing a lot of the cooking on your own, which takes time to chop a lot of the vegetables and take the time to, that's the one thing, is it's a little more time consuming when you're trying to save money. If I do these prepared meals that I can order and it's super easy, I just dump it in the crock pot, I'm probably paying 2 or 3 times as much to have this as I am to just buy this bag and put it in the crock pot and try to season it myself. This would take a little longer, trying to figure out exactly how to make it taste good, but it's maybe half as much as cost. And other things to do to try to save money, and making big pots of like soups and stews, and I put them in quart jars, and like even broth and simple things like that, and then just freezing those and having an easy meal I can take out. And maybe one kid wants the chili and the other person wants the stew, and so we can mix and match different meals easier, and it's more affordable. I think a lot of these meals end up being just a few dollars instead of 2 or 3 times as much when you're buying packaged things. Of course, cheap foods like Top Ramen and Stouffer's lasagna or something, they can be very cheap. But I often tell people you can be very cheap in the grocery store and then pay more money at the doctor's office, because you're more likely to get sick, you're more likely to have health issues, and then you're going to pay for it in the end with the way you feel, the way overall how you're responding with your energy level, everything. It's going to pay off not just in money, but also in the way you're feeling and the way your kids feel and the way they develop and they grow. So making sure they're getting good nutrition in little bits is going to help them develop and grow to be stronger long term, and having their offspring have healthier upbringings because they're being taught, and they're having a better foundation to be raised from.
Okay. So this time of year, we've been talking about the foods you do want to eat to kind of boost up liver and boost up your health and your fiber levels. Are there any foods this time of year that you'd say to kind of stay away from? That foods that may be better in a different time of year, but not so great for you this time of year?
As it gets warmer, usually we want to eat more of the greens and the cooler foods as it heats up. Just and not as many. A lot of warm, spicy foods. Lamb is considered a warm food, and as it gets warmer in the season, you want to stay away from some of the hot foods that you maybe would eat during the winter. And also, just in general, alcohol is a very warm, heat food, and so I can see maybe for peace of mind or enjoyment, if people have those kinds of things in small amounts, just everything in moderation is where Chinese medicine always goes back to moderation. If you enjoy a glass of wine or a beer or whatever, having a little bit of that, but it's also adding heat to your liver. And so the more you do those kinds of hot foods and what we call greasy, damp foods, they tend to help stagnate the liver more. So it causes more for the liver to have to clear out. And then it has to work harder. And sometimes if your liver is already taxed from your stressful lifestyle or from your over worrying and thinking, and then you're adding more for it to clear out, sometimes it just gets bogged down and it cannot do what it needs to. And that's why people start getting a lot of these symptoms, because their liver is so stagnant. It can't keep the nourishment going to the joints. It can't keep your moods mellow and level. It gets more stagnant and has what we call liver qi stagnation, where you get this irritability and grumpiness and things like, and pains, because your liver isn't able to keep flushing what it just can't keep up.
Okay. I've got a couple questions. The difference between, or is kale one of the superfoods? Everybody's calling it a superfood. Is it better to have more of that over other greens, or is a good balance more important?
I think a good balance is important, because if you're eating a lot of cold, what we call colder, harder to digest foods, it can take a lot of energy to break that down and absorb it. And so sometimes it's good to have a good variety. You can get those nutrient dense foods like kale and that, but if you're doing a ton of kale, and it takes a lot of raw things like lettuces and kale and those greens can take a lot of digestive energy to warm them up and break them down. And so if you're not strong with your what we call your spleen chi, your stomach chi, to help break that down and absorb it, you're going to get more stagnation in your stomach, and then you get a lot of bloating and gas and diarrhea and other things that bog down with your stomach. So I think depending on the person, and if they're able to eat those kinds of things and have no problems, they feel good with it, they probably have a good digestive system, acid and things to break it down. But if they feel like they get gassy and bloated, they need to start out slower, maybe do some more like sauteing and helping break down the greens to absorb them better without causing their stomach so much taxing work to try to help it. And that's what a lot of times the crock pot and the slow cooking the grains and even like toasting nuts, it helps take some of the energy to break it down, to get the enzymes and things out of minerals, out of the nutrition, out of the food. It helps by cooking it a little bit or slow cooking these grains and lentils and things that take a lot of energy to absorb. By slow cooking them, it helps release enzymes and nutrients so that your body can use them better. than just eating this raw thing that takes a lot of energy. And sometimes people get nothing out of it, or hardly anything, because they can't absorb it.
Okay. So, how long do you recommend eating for the liver? Another month or two? I mean, where does traditional Chinese medicine say, okay, we're moving out of spring and into summer, or the next food phase?
Usually we move into summer like mid-June. When it starts to get hotter, it's turning like more summer energy, usually mid-June in the US or in our country. So as the heat, it really can depend on our weather, of what kind of foods we should eat to keep us balanced. But usually mid-June it starts to get hotter, and then we are moving into heart season, and we need to eat a little more cooling foods like summer vegetables and greens and things like that. Salads are more appropriate at that time when it's hot, but you still want to make sure your digestive energy can break it down and absorb it. If people, I've had people say they're eating 2 salads a day and they're not losing weight and they're bloated all the time. It's their stomach, even if it's summer and warm out, we're breathing warm air, we're exposed to warm air. We need to balance with our middle and not do too much cold on it, because it just can't handle it. And trying in general, Chinese medicine, we say stay away from ice, cold foods out of the refrigerator. Too many cold, damp foods can cause your middle to crash, and just it can't keep up with it. And so trying to baby your middle with little bits of cool foods as it's hotter and you're getting more heat, then you can do those, but not too much, not too much cold, not too much hot. You can overheat your system too. And but I've had people that are like vegetarian, or they've done so much cold that they can tolerate more heat to warm their system back up. But you could overdo it and do too much heat. A lot of
Okay.
Americans eating so much meat and different things, they get hot easier, and they have a lot of hot symptoms. Looking at them with like high blood pressure, red face, very red tongue. And those are signs that they've had a lot of heat and they need to probably cool their system down with more vegetables.
Okay. I've got one more question here from somebody. What would you recommend for somebody with a fatty liver?
Well, that's usually fats in general are what we call dampness, and trying to help your body clear dampness. There's different foods that are damp clearing, and usually high fiber foods can help with dampness. Some certain minerals can clear dampness. We have a list of foods I can give people to help with clearing the damp. But three of the worst damp foods that help your body get bogged down with too much what we call fats and are dairy, sugar, and white flour. Those are just damp, gluey foods that cause a lot of problems in the body to accumulate. And so I'm not saying you have to give them up completely. Most people, if they're balance them with, you eat some of the damp dairy, you have some other fibers and nutrients to help your body carry it through and get some of that through your system without bogging it down. And so fatty liver, I would say they need to do the fibery foods and other things to help, foods to support the liver, as well as clearing out too much damp foods.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap things up. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we end class?
No, I appreciate you interviewing me, and I love talking about this stuff. I think it's fun. It's to experiment myself and learn more about new foods, and I like to teach people about foods and see them making changes just by things they can control.
All right. Well, Lexie, thank you for being here and letting me interview you. And thank you for all this great information. This time of year, especially with all the worry and stress that people are going through right now, being able to eat healthy or understanding how to eat healthy, I should say, is enormous. So thank you for the great information. Guys, if you want more information and you want to know more, and especially if you're in the Denver area, Colorado area, you can get in touch with Lexie at calmspiritacupuncture.com. I'm going to put a link down in the comments. If you've got more questions for her, you can get in touch with her there. We're getting some comments. Thank you, Lexie. That was awesome. They're saying
Sure.
so.
All right. Thanks. Have a good one, Dylan.
So this was some wonderful information, and so we're going to wrap it up there, guys. As always, keep being mindful. Pay attention to what's going on in your mind. Short circuit the negative and enhance the positive, whether it's in your mind or what's going in your face. All right. So guys, have a great day, and tomorrow we'll have another great topic. I'm not sure what yet. I know we've been kind of bouncing around. Maybe we'll get around to the anger thing, especially after working with liver. So have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.